Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. Welcome, friends, to our Window on the World, because today we're going to talk about friends and relationship. And you're our friends, so stay tuned to find out how we can develop our relationships. We're certainly glad to have some people in our class who haven't been here for a while. Carolyn, you haven't been in class for a while.
Yes, it's been a little bit since I've been on advanced radio. Of course, I've been on Studio Classroom and Let's Talk in English and doing many other things.
Well, that's
But
true.
I just haven't been able to join you for the radio program.
Well, welcome back to Advanced Class again.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back.
And we also have Jack with us. Jack, you've been on now and then.
Yeah, that's right. Radio is something that I do every once in a while, and I always have fun doing it.
Well, we're glad to have you today.
Yeah.
Because I think we're all interested in this idea of friends and relationships. Now, relations are our relatives, but what are relationships?
Well, this is the interaction that you have with other people. So you can have a good relationship. That means that you get along with someone else, or a bad relationship, which means that you don't get along.
Okay, so it's kind of a good subject that we can talk about. It's on page 38, and we're going to talk about what we call the friendship test. How can you tell whether your friends are true friends or not? That's a pretty good question.
It is, and I think now the important point to say before we start is that there are many kinds of relationships, and so there are different levels of friendships. Like you might have some friends that are just maybe people that you know, that you see every once in a while. What this article is specifically about is how to tell who are your very closest, your best friends that you can trust, that you can rely on in all different times of your life.
Well, the article says that there's going to be 4 ways for us to tell who our true friends are. Now, sometimes when I think of friends, we talk about close friends. That's people who know us better. And what do we call people that we just know a little bit, but they're not our real friends?
Well, we might just call them an acquaintance.
Right. We say we have acquaintances. We know a lot of people. You've seen them before. You talk to them, but they're not actually your friends. You know them. We call them acquaintances.
Exactly. When I think of acquaintances nowadays, I think about if you use Facebook, most of the people who I'm friends with on Facebook are really more acquaintances. They're people I've met maybe a few times, maybe took a class with or something.
And they say, can I be on your Facebook? And you don't know them very well, right?
Yeah, so those are people maybe we would just call acquaintances. Mm-hmm. But your friends are maybe people that you see regularly, that you are continuing to experience life with.
Well, I don't usually think about it, whether these people are true friends or not, but this article is going to give us some ideas to see whether we are being good friends and who our friends are. So it could be useful for us. What do you think?
Sure. There are a lot of different things that go into friendships, and we'll be talking about some of those things later. But it's not just about whether or not they're there to talk to you when you're sad or when you're happy. There's a lot of things that go into friendships, and we'll kind of discuss that later.
Good. So it's a good article for us today. And let's open up your magazines now and get ready to take the first section, which starts on page 38, about the friendship test. And let's read the first section.
The friendship test. 4 ways to tell who your true friends are. In a recent moment of nostalgia, I was rereading an old favorite, Charlotte's Web. And when Charlotte essentially sacrifices her life to save her best friend, Wilbur, it still gets me all choked up. As an adult, it made me think. In a world where you can have more than 3,000 online friend connections, what makes a real, true, lasting friendship? Yes, there are lots of friends who pepper our world. Partying pals, business acquaintances, cool colleagues. But what makes a real friend?
Well, that's a good question.
It sure is. We see a lot of things here, good descriptions like, in a world where we have online friend connections, people we've connected with in different circles. But what makes a real, true, lasting friendship?
Well, one thing I would say first is that we all need friends, because if you're by yourself and you're too lonesome and it gets people very down and depressed. So we do need friends, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Friendships are a really important part of our life. And there are lots of different kinds of friendships. We see a few listed out in our lesson here. Party pals, business acquaintances, those sorts of things. But we can have deeper relationships too, not just friendship. We can be married, and that's another type of relationship that we have that's a little different from a friendship.
However, they do say that your husband or wife should be your best friend too. Now, some people, we see people that have been married a long time. I think of some of our teachers that have been here a long time. And they're still good friends, even though they might be in love, but they still are helping their friends. So it's good if your husband and wife is your friend, too, don't you think?
Sure, I would say that my husband's my best friend.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we're talking about nostalgia here, so we're thinking back on things that we remember from the past, and they're kind of good memories, aren't they?
Yeah. So in the case of the author, she had nostalgia about the book Charlotte's Web that she had read, and she was thinking about it again. And, often when we want to think back about good memories and we're kind of like recalling those memories, we can call that kind of action like nostalgia. It's a feeling. I'm having nostalgia about something in the past that I miss.
Mm-hmm. Or sometimes you'll think of something when your mother first took you out to do something, and you kind of makes you feel warm-hearted because you think, oh, you get all choked up, and you think, wasn't that nice?
Sure, and that's a great phrase there, all choked up. If you are all choked up about something, then you're feeling emotional. Sometimes this could be a sad feeling because it does kind of reference crying, that choked feeling that you might have if you're crying, but it could be something that's happy as well. I know sometimes when people go to weddings, they might feel all choked up because they're overjoyed. They're having a very happy feeling.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. It's a feeling of emotion to crying. Could be, like you said, like heartbreaking, or it could be like so much joy or a full feeling. Yeah. Well,
they're talking about a book here that this author wrote about, and she said it was one of her favorites that she read. It's called Charlotte's Web. Now, Charlotte was not a person. This book was written about 1952, and who was Charlotte?
Well, Charlotte is the name of a spider.
A spider, not a person.
Which is why she has a web, because spiders spin webs.
Okay.
That's right. And in the story, actually, the main characters they're animals, they're creatures. And there's a famous pig. Isn't his name Wilbur, is it? Wilbur?
Yes. So we see that in our article here that Charlotte essentially sacrifices her life to save her best friend, Wilbur. Well, Wilbur is a pig.
Now, can you imagine any spider and a pig having anything to do with each other? You know it's a story.
Well, sure, but in the story, they are friends, and Charlotte and Wilbur help each other.
Right. And so as she thought, well, I think I'll reread that. Have you ever reread some books you read a long time ago, and you said, I haven't read that for a long time? Sometimes you might do that when you have time.
Absolutely. And you know what? Charlotte's Web is a book that I read when I was very young, and it's a classic. It's actually, I think it's been tested on multiple generations.
Yeah, it's been in movies and everything.
Yeah. And so I think especially when it comes to classics, I want to reread those.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's kind of, now everybody's going to want to read this because we talked about it again, see? But
you should.
Yeah, you should.
It's a good book.
But as an adult, you read this when you're a kid. But in the world, you don't think about it much. You say, well, now, you might have a lot of online friends, but are they really friends? Would they give their life to save you like this story was?
Right. Well, that's a bit of an extreme example to give your life for someone else.
Well, it
that's
is.
a very hard and difficult thing to do. But the author does write, as an adult, she's thinking about friend connections. And with social media, it is very easy to have thousands of online friends.
Oh, that's too many, right.
But how well do you really know all of those people? Like Jack mentioned earlier, you can have lots of friends online, but you really don't know them that well.
Well, that's true. Whether they're online or personally, you meet a lot of people, but you don't have very many close friends that you can share things with. But it says that there's a lot of friends who pepper our world, and this idea of pepper is kind of funny. That means that they're all over the world, like spraying around like pepper, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you take the pepper and you're going to add it to your food, the little grains of pepper just fly all over your food, and they're kind of spread out and dotted here and there, and that's the idea of using this word peppered.
Who are some of these people that pepper your life?
Well, we have a few examples. We have partying pals.
Let's go to a party. Let's invite,
Yes,
Let's invite
People you want
Carolyn.
to have a good time with. Just have a party.
Yeah, just people that you have fun with. And I think the author chose the word pal because it also begins with a P sound, partying pals. But pal is just a friend, right?
Okay.
You could say, oh, these are my pals. And usually that's a more casual friendship.
Well, then business acquaintances. Maybe it's what if it's Jack's birthday? We might take him out for birthday, but he might not be your personal friend, but Jack will take you out for your birthday, see?
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful.
So, these are business connections.
Yeah.
And then you have colleagues that you really like or teachers you like or anybody that you sort of enjoy being with, but they're not one of your closest friends.
Right. So people that you get along with at the office, your colleagues, they might be your friends, but a lot of times we spend time with our coworkers in the office, but we don't see them outside of the office.
Right.
So you're friendly, but that doesn't mean you're friends. Maybe you don't go see movies together, or maybe you do, and then maybe you are friends, not
That's
just
cool.
colleagues.
That's cool.
I
isn't
like
it?
that distinction, Carol, in
Yeah.
saying you can be friendly, which, of course, like when you're working together, you're friendly
Should
with each
be,
other.
yeah.
But, you're probably not going to be friends meeting outside of the office.
Well, you can only have so many real friends anyway. That's, But the number one here, it tells us, it says, you can show them all sides of you. So one of the first things they're talking about here is if you want to say if they're your real friend, then you can open up to them. Let's read this part here that says you can show them all sides of you. Read that together.
One, you can show them all sides of you. A real friend isn't there just for the good times, celebrations, happy events, when you're in a good mood. They're there for you in times of pain, uncertainty, and failure too. This is often when we most need our friends. Who will check in on you regularly when you're sick? Who will give you a ride to the airport when you're stressed? Who will listen when you need to rant about something? Who will attend a relative's funeral with you? Friendship is multidimensional, and it's a 365 days a year privilege.
Well, we can't open up and show everybody how we feel about everything because they wouldn't understand. And that makes us leave ourselves open to hurt. So we don't expect to. But if you feel like that person understands you and you don't mind telling them, they're not going to laugh at you or tell everybody else you're that way, then you can open up to them. Isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly. And I would say this is a very important one to be careful about because not every relationship is going to be appropriate for you to share like
They won't
everything
understand
about you.
you. They won't, you can't expect everybody.
And if that person is maybe they're not ready for that, it might confuse them a little bit. For instance, if you share some of those things, they might not know why you're telling them that or what they're supposed to do with it. But you'll know that person is the really good friend when you feel like, I know I can share this person. Yeah.
Right. And I like this phrase of this little first section here. You can show them all sides of you. If you see all sides of someone, then it's not just the good side or the bad side.
We try to
or
hide the bad
cool side.
We try to hide the bad side.
Right. So all sides. That means all the good times, all the bad times, all the different emotions that you feel as a person, you can share with this friend, and they will understand.
That's true, because, some people will do certain things for you, but they don't expect me to do that. Why do you think I would do that? But a real friend, they don't mind helping you. Whatever you happen to need, they could take you someplace, or you feel like you just need to rant about something, means to spiel off or talk about something. And, of course, you should be careful not to just let everybody know how you feel every minute. But they would understand. But what does it mean when it says friendship is a multidimensional thing? That's kind of hard to understand.
Yeah, multidimensional is a long word, of course. And let's take it apart. So we've got in the middle dimensional. So dimensions are having like multiple different sides or features of something. And so if something's multidimensional, it means that it has multiple different perhaps perspectives or sides to it. So friendship is multidimensional, means it has a lot of different features, a lot of things that are different from each other. Like your friend might be the person you have fun with, but they also might be your counselor, like someone who it tells you what you need to hear. So those are some examples of how friendship might be multidimensional.
Sure, and I think the author gives some really good examples of what that multidimensional friendship looks like. It's someone who celebrates with you. Maybe they'll go to your friend's wedding, or they'll have a birthday party and they'll plan it for you. They want to celebrate, but they're also there when, say, you need to go to a funeral, and they're there to comfort you. And when you're feeling stressed or maybe lose a job and you need help, they're there to support you during all of those things, not just good.
They care about you.
Right.
Yeah, and the thing that I like this, it's basically implied when we talk about all these different events, is time. It assumes that there's some time going on in this friendship. And I think it's good to be a little bit cautious about friendships that are become deep in a very short amount of time.
It takes time.
Yeah, really. I mean, a friend who is through good times and bad times with you, they know that, well, this is a bad time, but it will pass on, and there will be good times. And that's a really safe thing when we have some time going on.
Well, you need to spend time with people for them to get to know you, that's for sure, see? Right. And so when you have a good friend, then you have to show them what you're like. But another thing is a good friend, the second thing to show that they're your true friend is that they don't judge you for everything. Say, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And judging other people can be very difficult because we don't always make the right judgment on them. But your friend is not going to say, well, you shouldn't do this, and judge you all the time. So let's read what it says about that. They don't judge you. Read the next section.
Two, they don't judge you. Trust is created when you can be met without judgment, no matter what. When something embarrassing, upsetting, or awful happens, maybe you made a bad decision or trusted the wrong person, or something goes awry and you can't deal with it alone, a real friend will listen without judging. Brené Brown says we're blessed to have just one or two friends we can trust with our shame stories. Most of us can steamroll over these friends while we work to win the approval and acceptance of people who really don't matter in our lives. People we'd never call when we were in a real struggle, she says. Who can you trust with something that feels ugly?
Okay, so it's created when you can meet together without always judging somebody. Now, it's true we can see what people are like, but then, you know, it says, that's one thing I like about it says in the Bible, not to judge people unless you want them to judge you. And I don't think we want to keep judging each other because we don't have all the facts about each other. Maybe you do something and I say, why did you do that? Well, you have a reason, but I don't know it, so I shouldn't judge you, right?
Right. And it's difficult. It's kind of human nature to want to pass judgment, to look at things and say, that was a good decision or that was a bad decision. This is right, this is wrong. But it's important when we are friends with someone to try to understand what is happening and to show compassion and to be kind to our friends.
Yeah.
So sometimes you do make the wrong decision, but then maybe you'll learn by that, so you won't do it again. So you can help people get over it instead of just pointing your finger at them.
Exactly, and I think that's where judging it's a hard word to talk about. It's kind of a hard word to be clear about. We were talking a little bit earlier before we started the program about judging and being judgmental, because we'll see tomorrow a little bit about, we're going to talk about speaking the truth. And it's important to have a friend that'll speak the truth to you. But we don't want a friend who is, like you said, Doris, is going to point a finger at you.
And tell you did the wrong thing. Maybe your friend doesn't even know all the situations, so we're not in a position to judge everybody.
That's true. I think that in general, what the author is saying is they are willing to listen. They have a listening heart. They might, for instance, I think we'll see tomorrow, they might tell you something true about what you did. Like maybe you did something that wasn't the smartest. But they're going to have a listening, understanding heart when they listen to you. Yeah.
That's right. And we read in our lesson that maybe you made a bad decision or trusted the wrong person or something goes awry. And if something goes awry, that means that it's not the way it's supposed to go. It
didn't work out right.
It didn't happen the way you thought it would.
Right.
And so maybe it's something you couldn't control. In this situation, you want to be able to share what you're going through with someone who won't pass judgment, someone who won't judge you negatively for something that you couldn't control.
Well, it says down here that they talked about we're blessed to have one or two friends who we can trust with our shame stories, which reminds me of the fact that nowadays, because everybody likes to put everything on Facebook, sometimes they'll put a shame story about you or something on Facebook, and we should never do that.
Yeah.
Because a shame story, you're sorry about it, and you don't want everybody, it doesn't help, and that just really... it doesn't help anybody at all.
That's really true. You're right, Doris. That's unfortunately becoming a common way that people are kind of like...
I'm angry at you. I'm going to put something about you on Facebook.
Exactly. Kind of abusing relationships through online. But you know your true friend is going to be the person who you can share some moment of weakness with them. And they're going to listen to you and listen out the story and not just reveal your weakness.
Right. You can trust them with this information. They're not going to share it with other people. A real friend is someone who doesn't gossip about these things going on, right? They keep your secrets.
Right. Well, it also says most of us can steamroll over these friends while we work to win their approval and acceptance of people who really don't matter in our lives. So we try to please them, and so it doesn't make any difference. I mean, we should please the people that care for us, that we care for.
That's right. So I think that the author here is particularly talking about a professional situation, like in a workplace, and maybe your coworker shares something difficult. Maybe they're having a struggle in the home or something like that. And it would be so wrong to use that kind of information to gain influence, to say, well, this person doesn't have their life in control, and to try to get yourself ahead with people who are above you. That's winning the approval and acceptance of people who we would never call on when we're in a real struggle. Yeah.
So let's remember that we can understand what people do, and we know sometimes it's wrong, but we try to help them. We can help them see it's wrong, but we don't judge them. And one thing we say, well, I'd never do that. Don't ever say that, because the minute you say it, you might do it. So you better be careful.
Yeah.
Not say, I'd never do that. It seems like we're more righteous than they are.
Exactly.
We can't be that way. We have to be understanding, don't we?
That's right.
Right. And we need to make sure that people who actually are valuable friends, those are the people that we're spending our time with.
Right.
I think part of the point that our author is trying to make here with steamrolling over these friends, trying to win approval from other people, is we're ignoring the people who are really our true friend, who really want to help, who really want to spend time with us. They're genuine friends, but we don't make time for them because we think other people are more important, or we can get something from these other relationships, and so we don't invest in our true friends.
And I remember that at some times earlier in my life where there were some people that I kind of like really wanted their approval and their friendship, and I kind of ignored other people who were actually there, and they were
cared about you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, man, it feels so foolish later when I realized I was looking for the wrong person. They were the right kind of friend was right around me all the whole time.
So this is kind of a friendship test, but we are learning, and we can make true lifelong friendships. And like we say at Studio Classroom, we want to be your friends. We're not just saying that. We want to help you with your English. It's just not like a slogan. And we have to mean it when we say it, don't we?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So let's talk more about that tomorrow, because we have one other day. But relationships are very important, and your life can be so different if you have the right kind of relationships too. So with each other, and so we know how to be a good friend and how to help others. So see you tomorrow when we finish the lesson. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.